Hi, guys. Looks like there's only a couple of us here so far, so we'll just give it a few minutes before we get started. Welcome to Lillian. Welcome, Shane. Hey, Jason. Thanks for joining today.
Hi, Liz. Thanks for having me.
Welcome, Alex, and welcome, Julie.
Hi there, Liz.
Hi. It's so nice out. I'm working on my porch here, but the lighting isn't that great, so I apologize.
Hey, Liz.
Hi, Julie.
What are we going to talk about today?
Jason is here to do a QA on the Corporate Transparency Act. So we'll see what he's got for us. I've been looking into it a little bit, and maybe Jason will have other information, but what I'm seeing is it seems like they're still kind of trying to figure out the guidance on that.
I have a slideshow and everything, Liz, that I'll present.
Oh, good. Sweet. Thank you, Jason. You know, Jason has been really slammed, so we appreciate his effort to kind of come and address this topic with the group. And if after the session we still have additional questions, we'll just jot those down. And if we have to revisit, we will do that. So also the vault, if you guys have any kind of questions, of course, you know, you've got the general chat, legal chat, tax, and insurance in the vault. So if you have questions, you can post them there. We try to get back to people as quickly as possible. So just be patient if you do have a question up and it hasn't been answered immediately. Oftentimes people are in meetings most of the day, and that's kind of an extra responsibility. But yeah, the vault is a great place to share resources, questions, ideas, deals. Of course, you guys have the ability to do private messaging in there as well. So maybe after today, I'll put a couple of the articles that I found on this act in case you guys want more information. Hi, Ravi. Welcome. Welcome, Chris. We've got JS and Matt. So we were just waiting a few minutes, guys, as people were sort of trickling in. If you just joined, we've got Jason Marino here today to talk to us about the Corporate Transparency Act. And I guess we'll just give it another couple minutes here. Does anybody have any ideas for the thought jogger? I'm kind of drawing a blank on that today. Anything top of mind that you guys think might be good for the breakout session? Looks like we'll probably have small groups today, so I guess I'll just leave it to you guys to discuss whatever whatever comes up. Maybe just a general introduction if you do end up in a room with new folks, you know, where you invest, how many properties you have, or kind of where you are in your investment journey, and then your superpower are typically common questions that we have brought up in breakouts before. So let's go ahead and do that. Ken, can you put us into, I don't know, maybe 3-4 person rooms, and we'll go, I guess, 10 minutes?
All right, sure.
Okay, thanks. And as new people join, we will kick them into the rooms too. So I'll see you guys back here at about 1:45.
no, Bobby.
All right, welcome back, guys. I see we've got a few more people have shown up, so glad that you could join us today. I'm not going to take any more time. I'm going to go ahead and just pass this over to Jason. I think you guys are familiar with him. He has spoke with our group before, and as I mentioned, he's here to share a little presentation on the Corporate Transparency Act, and I imagine that we'll have some time at the end for QA. So thank you again, Jason, for being here. We really appreciate you.
Thanks, Liz. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Hi, everybody. So this is, I'm going to say, probably not one of the most fun topics, but it is one of the more necessary topics. As Liz mentioned, some of these things are still in flux, so I don't want to pin it down too much. I'm going to tell you what I know after hours of research, reading pieces of the act as well, and we'll take it from there and we'll have questions afterwards. So it'll be kind of a comprehensive overview, but it's still going to be kind of fairly high level for right now. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll take off. All right, hopefully you can all see my screen right now. I'm going to minimize this. So the Corporate Transparency Act, I'll be referring it to as the CTA from here on out. So this is just an introduction to the team. So we have Aaron Porter with insurance, me as one of the senior attorneys, Pete, head of the accounting division, Scott, the founder and CEO, and then we'll jump right into it. So the CTA, so it's a new federal law. It's been talked about for some years at this point. The main drive of it is to prevent money laundering, financing of terrorism, tax evasion, other financial crimes. It's going to be implemented and enforced by the U.S. Treasury Department. So the idea is to create a database of entity management and ownership information. Right now, those terms are a little bit broad and kind of vague, but I think that pretty much encapsulates what it is. It's going to be accessible currently to federal and state law enforcement agencies, state law enforcement agencies only with a court order, and other government agencies. So for instance, IRS. Similar databases do exist in most other developed countries, specifically in Europe. Some of the other Commonwealth countries as well will have it. Australia, South Africa, places like that. It's intended to assist in the modernization of the current laws already in place to fight these type of financial crimes. Okay, when will reporting start? So currently what we're looking at, and it has kind of changed a little bit. I think they wanted to implement it probably earlier from things that I've read, but currently what we're looking at is January 1st, 2024. For all entities formed on or after that date, they will be required to report. For all existing entities, which everybody in here who has an entity, you're going to fall within that scheme. You have until January 1st, 2025, for any pre-existing entity to file a report. So what entities need to report? So currently it's kind of interpreted broadly. I'm going to say more or less if you filed with the Secretary of State, that entity is probably going to need to report with some limited exceptions. So this is going to apply to LLCs, corporations, limited partnerships. It will also apply to statutory trusts as well because they're filed at the Secretary of State level. Common law trust, revocable trust, currently that is not included in the definition. It's also going to apply to foreign entities who were filed in foreign actual countries who are operating within the United States. Certain exceptions do exist. So many companies that are already kind of on the radar, so 20 plus employees above $5 million in revenues, additionally entities that are already subject to some sort of scrutiny, so SEC reporting companies, banks, insurance companies, they already have reporting requirements, they're going to be exempted. Tax exempt entities are also going to be exempted as of right now. So who actually needs to report? So we talked about the entities, but who's going to be reporting? And currently this is still a little bit in flux. It's broadly interpreted currently. So what it's going to look like is they said beneficial owners of entities. So a 25% share or more. There's really no loopholes to that. They intend to cover whether it's a membership interest, shareholder interest, whether you have options, whether you have a controlling interest. So really any way you want to define that, that's currently included. It could also apply to any officer that exercises substantial control over the entity. So this would be CFOs, CEOs, presidents, treasurers, Company organizer, this is one of those parts where they're kind of debating it. If you look at the ABA, American Bar Association, topics on it, basically it's saying like possibly if an attorney files it for you, if a CPA files it for you, they're probably also going to have to be listed in the report. As I said, the interpretation currently is going to be broad. Probably a conservative approach is going to be taken just to try to not miss something and be in violation of it. So what information needs to be reported? Again, fairly broad in scope, but remember, this is a limited database. Right now, it's just going to be extended to law enforcement, federal, state, and local, if they have a court order. Could it be applied to financial institutions, but that's only with company consent right now. But basically what you're going to be providing to this database, which is managed by the Treasury, is the company name, any doing business as names, trade names, business address, state of formation, EIN, owner, or as I said before, beneficial owner, controller's name, date of birth, home address, and copy of identification. It's going to have to be disclosed within 30 days of formation after January 1st, 2024, if you're a new filer. It's going to have to be disclosed up until January 1, 2025 for any existing entities. So you have right now, anybody in this room, you have until 2025 to file that information. It's going to have to be updated if it materially changes. So you have a new owner, you have a new partner, that information is going to have to be updated. The database has to be updated. Update has to take place within 30 days of the change. So who's in charge of the database? As I mentioned, it's the United States Treasury, but specifically it is the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, FinCEN. They're going to be creating and they're in charge of the maintenance of the newly created database. Reporting will be completed by submitting information to them directly. Currently, they're not actually accepting anything. So even if you want to take a jump on it and submit, you can't. It's not even available until January 1, 2024. And that may be pushed back. It's potentially not even the date, but right now that's what it's looking like. It's currently under construction still, so that's why I say these things are always subject to change. So as I mentioned, shared with federal law enforcement agencies, what we're talking about there, DEA, FBI, those are the two, any of the Treasury departments as well, state law and local law enforcement agencies with a court order. There's talk of it applying to civil cases as well with a court order. But I don't want to be a fearmonger here. Most of that information would come out in discovery in a lawsuit anyway. The court order would pretty much necessitate that you're already in a lawsuit at that point. Also could be shared with financial institutions, but only with the company's consent currently. So penalties for non-compliance. Right now, there's a range of fees and fines up to jail time. The fees that I've heard at the top end are $10,000. But I also have seen some things where it's going to be a daily rate. And then I've also seen jail time up to 2 years so far, but I've also seen some flux on that. Timelines are going to be strictly enforced. However, they do have, if you've submitted in the wrong way by accident, inaccurate information, you have a 90-day grace period to be granted a resubmittal with accurate information. So I think that there is going to be some wiggle room for people who are trying to act in non-nefarious ways. So as I mentioned, you can't even report right now if you wanted to. It's not yet complete. It's under construction. Reporting is scheduled to begin January 1, 2024. And then, obviously for people who have existing entities, you'll have that entire year to kind of figure out how you're going to report, what you're going to report. And that's really it. And I guess in conclusion, you're going to hear a range of things, people who have read things on this, from everything from like, this is the end of anonymity to it's not a big deal. I'm going to try to take a measured approach here and say that it's somewhere in between. Yes, there's less anonymity than there was before, but currently it's going to be shared with government agencies. It's not going to be publicly available. I can't go and just request the information currently. And so to me, I think that you're still going to have anonymity from the public, anonymity from third-party creditors who haven't yet filed a lawsuit. As I mentioned, once a lawsuit's filed and there's discovery, once you get into depositions, things of that nature, inquiries, that information is all going to come out. That takes time and money to get to. Same with this. You're going to need a court order to access this as a regular person. That takes time and money to get that. So that's the conclusion of my presentation. It's pretty brief, but I didn't want to bore you with any of the details, especially since they may or may not change in the future. But at this point, I will open it up for any questions that you may have via chat, or if you want to talk to me either.
Jason, I have a question. So you said once the lawsuit is filed, that information will come out. And a lot of times it goes through subpoena a party. So who's gonna be subpoenaed? The Treasury? If the creditor wants to find out the information.
Yeah, I don't know. To be honest, this is a brand new thing, so I don't know. It hasn't been litigated yet, so I don't know how a litigator is going to go about it. Whether they will go through the traditional method of just if they'll get a court order to look for that information, or if they'll go through the traditional method of just doing a deposition and asking you all that information, and you're going to have to, under threat of perjury, answer that anyway. I don't know right now which direction they're going to go with that because it's just untested right now. So
Okay, thank you.
yeah, of course.
Hey, and just to be 100% clear here, this is not something that's going to be public information, right? This is just, I mean, like me personally, I don't mind sending information to government. I just don't want tenants or anybody that wants to sue me. So it's, and I agree with you. Look, this information comes out if you're in a lawsuit, regardless. You have to provide it. But just to be clear, it's not something that there's some public database that anybody could go into and find out ownership. Is that your understanding, Jason?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I really appreciate the support on that because yeah, I've seen things where like this is like the sky is falling down. It's a formality of already existing laws. The IRS already pretty much knows what you own for the most part, unless you're legitimately illicit. So this is not really new information to them. They already have more than what you think. So.
Hey, Chris and Jason. So with this law, so whatever the anonymity advocated for the number of years and years, so that is all out the door now. I mean, there is no anonymity. There is no anonymity with this law. I mean, basically, other party is going to file the lawsuit, and then they will know what who is the owner of this entity, and then so they will know everything about it. And so, what about the Wyoming LLC?
Yeah, there's still not going to be able. Yeah, they're still not going to be able to access the information off the cuff. Like if I went to the Secretary of State and I looked up your LLC and you have an anonymous one, it's not going to not be anonymous now. The only way that this information comes really to the surface, like Chris was saying, is I'm going to have to file a lawsuit. Inside that lawsuit, I'm going to have to get a court order and try to get this information from the federal government or from you directly. So you're not losing any anonymity from the public as it stands currently. So if I'm just a person sniffing around trying to see if you're a good target, this is not going to change anything about that. And that's really where anonymity comes into play. The anonymity that we're creating from creditors is it's usually at the outset, whether the person decides to have a lawsuit against you or not. Do they want to take that risk? That's not going to change. And that's going to stop a majority of frivolous lawsuits right there. So you're not losing that benefit.
Okay, and I'm interested to see what the attorneys is going to be talking about in the coming weeks, about the anonymity. I think this is going to be a huge issue for them, and not just me. I mean, in general for the entire community with the trust and the anonymity and all this, and filing a lawsuit and then getting an order. I mean, it may not be a big deal. They can throw just $100 and then find a lawyer and then try to get the information back. Is that really hard to find?
I'm gonna say this: there's no attorney that you're gonna find that I've ever met that's gonna do anything for you for $100. We're talking about thousands of dollars to start a lawsuit, not hundreds.
Okay.
And
less than that, Jason. I mean, if they're on contingent, but they're not gonna go searching if they're contingent. I mean, they're gonna do some really preliminary searches. And if they don't find what they want, they're not going to dig.
Yeah, exactly. So what Chris is talking about, we're talking about paid lawyers. Never is it ever going to be a few $100s. Contingency attorney may be free at the outset. However, I was a contingency attorney for the first year of my career. I hated it, but it was a good experience. What we would do is we would finance the lawsuit, and then we would take 30 to 40% of the winnings, depending on how far it had to go. 30 if it was a settlement, 40 if it was to trial. However, we only took winners. And so what Chris is talking about is we would go looking at the target. see what you own. And at that level, you're still anonymous. I can't figure you out that way. I would just use things like the recorder's information page, the tax assessor's page. I might use something like Data Tree to see what you have. That type of information is what I would be looking at. I'm not going to probably go get a court order just to get this information from FinCEN without an actual lawsuit being filed. So the contingency attorney, that's the majority of the lawsuits that we're trying to defend against are from them, but they're not going to take losing cases or cases that look like they're going to be too difficult. And with anonymity, you don't look most of the time like a very good target.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Chris.
And you said DST has to file, right?
Yeah, it's not actually included in the list, but what they say is they say basically they're trying to group any and all. So they're saying anything that needs a filing at the Secretary of State is going to have to basically supply this information. DST is statutory, so it is at the Secretary of State in Wyoming or Delaware, or, because there's more than one. There's the DST, but there's also the WST as well. So both of those are statutorily based. They are filed with the Secretary of State. So by extension, I would say yes, more likely than not, they're going to be on there. So.
Okay, thank you.
I think the biggest thing for you guys as investors, and for myself, because I have several LLCs, the biggest thing is it's just going to be, there's a filing process. It's cumbersome. There's probably going to be some sort of cost to do it if you don't do it yourself. It's more of an annoyance than anything else. As far as the anonymity component, like I said, me as an investor, I'm less worried about that part. I'm more worried about just complying with it, making sure that there's no fees or fines if I do it incorrectly.
If we've got a DST, we haven't filed, we're not paying therefore the franchise tax board fee every year. They find out, hey, you've had a DST for 10 years. Sorry, did you freeze? No, you're not. You're blinking. They find out, hey, you've had a DST for 10 years. Are they then going to come after you like, hey, you've got 10 years worth of payments? Like, is that a threat? Are they going to?
I don't think so. The California Franchise Tax Board is aware of DSTs existing, and currently they're exempted from it. So I also don't think that the level of communication between these organizations is as high as most people think.
Free fly.
So yeah, okay. So I have my doubts as to that being impacted at all. So
okay,
yeah, and
so by court order.
This is a federal entity. It's not a state entity, right?
Yeah, they're not communicating in a very.
Yeah, I guess I'm really, it's hypothetical. It was one of those, okay, California likes to claw back wherever they can.
Sure.
And so therefore it was, okay, what's the likelihood if they find out, okay, it's excluded. It's not like they don't know about it. It's actually excluded. That's a significant.
Yeah, I would say very low likelihood that the California Franchise Tax Board is going to be digging through FinCEN records. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I'm just naively not going to, well, maybe naive, maybe not, just not be terribly concerned with this. It's just another form we'll have to fill out. And I mean, hopefully something one pager like a 5500 EZ or something like that, that's easy to do. Hopefully it's not just another revenue drain, having to have somebody else do it for you, but I can't see it being that difficult to figure out. You're probably able to do it online.
Yeah, I imagine they're going to streamline it pretty easily. So, yeah, and I think it may be one of those things. There's debate right now whether a CPA is going to do it, whether an attorney is going to do it, or whether. So, internally, even in the firm, we're discussing, whether this is going to be a client type of thing or whether it's going to be us doing it. So that's kind of, it may be one of those things where it just is up to the client to do it. So we'll send reminders or something.
Right. Well, you said revenue, so I would assume that's tax. Probably would go in with your taxes, I would assume. But then again, there's a lot of pass-through entities that don't file a tax return as well. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see about who is required to do that. Who's like.
Yeah, we're talking about. I can't remember the number. I think it was like 30 million entities or something like that. It's going to be, there's going to be a learning curve to this. It's not going to be, because it's going to be an avalanche of people submitting these things. So I don't think.
I feel like it. Yeah, I feel like it even said like billion. I feel like I might have, maybe I misread it, but
I might
you
have missed
know,
a zero. It's possible.
one thing that I guess just, you know, stay calm about it. You got a long time to figure it out. You've got until, you know, we're talking a year and a half, right, to kind of get that. So it's a topic I would just kind of keep my ear to the ground as new guidance or as the guidance is kind of released, but it doesn't seem like it's not like a Chicken Little, the sky is falling situation, right? At this point, it's still very protected by only certain government agencies, not public record. Of course, that would be the biggest worry. And then, as Jason mentioned, all of the structures that we set up, they're so that people can't go through the public record to identify you as a candidate for a lawsuit. Once you're already over that cliff, you're dealing with a whole nother ball game. So some great points there, Jason. Does anybody else have anything that they want to add? We've got a bit of time left. Otherwise, we might call it early this week. So floor is open if you guys want to use up a bit more time. Are you guys ready to go to the beach or what? They're like, we're done. Oh, you know, that reminds me, guys, I need to mention, as you probably realize, the 4th of July is right around the corner. So we will not be meeting next week. Royal Legal will be closed. Our offices will be closed on that Monday, the 3rd, and Tuesday, the 4th. So we'll just be getting back into the swing of things on the 5th. We will not have a session the 5th. And then Scott will be joining us the following session, which is July 12th. Lee, I see you came on camera. Did you have any thoughts that you wanted to share?
I just wanted to be polite and not always be behind the screen. I was kind of thinking that considering the number of entities, even if there's just a very inexpensive little online service fee for doing this sort of, registration, annually or whatever, it might potentially be additional revenue for the government. And like you're saying, it's pretty standard information. I mean, your ID is provided in so many cases. I mean, even if you're just registering with a charity to do certain, volunteer activity, you're going to have a copy of your identification. And very often they even have your social security. They do a background check if you're helping out, in person, something charitable related. So it really probably isn't anything. I also think, formerly I was a banker and we would do these KYC checks, all this OFAC, you're double checking that anyone who's a potential client or that you'll be working with isn't on any sort of international lists, whether it's terrorist or money laundering or whatever. So yes, just sort of upping their level of oversight of, even these smaller private realm of LLCs, that people are who they should be, who they say they are, that they're doing things legally. It's just, I don't know. I guess my first reaction was that it's really awful, but honestly, this is pretty basic information. And like you're saying, it's really just going to the same entities that mostly have your information, right? So.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really great point, Leah, because like you said, being in the financial industry, the banks, the IRS, your accountant, they have all that information anyway. It's out there. So it's not like you can keep that.
Yeah, prove who you are, right?
Hey, I'm just going to make a quick selfish comment. Since we're not doing it on the 5th and the next one will be the 12th, I'm going to be in Italy on the 12th. So I probably won't see you guys for at least a couple of weeks.
Wow.
But I'm thinking and loving you guys, thinking about you, and I love you. I'll see you in a few weeks.
Have a super trip. Awesome
Yeah,
trip. Sounds great.
Looking
I
forward
wanted to actually, I had mentioned a couple of weeks ago to Chris, we were all together on some sort of a webinar, and I said, hey, I have to get back to you to thank you. At one point, I was looking into doing some deals, private lending, whatever, and Chris was sort of, had a conversation with me. He mentioned about doing background checks, and I really wanted to thank him because originally that felt so uncomfortable to me to ask someone to kind of really allow me. First of all, these are public records, very simple things like judgments, liens, bankruptcies. there's nothing, super secret in this kind of searches. It just would be very difficult to go state by state and office by office to find out this information. And it is important if you're potentially lending to somebody, right? You want to know if they have a bankruptcy 2 years ago and you're at risk of your money just never coming back to you. I felt very uncomfortable about it. And he had told me, look, in the past, I've asked people and even said, hey, you want to tell me if anything, I'll find. And he was even surprised that people didn't disclose to him, knowing he was doing a background check, that there were some questionable things on their records, even questionable as a lender to, or a business partner to somebody. Maybe you're a person that doesn't mind and you want to give a second chance to someone who had a bankruptcy 10 years ago, but you're concerned if someone has, $250,000 of tax liens, you might find some concern if you're potentially to partner with them on a property or lend them money. And I kind of got over the hurdle of asking people, and most people I found that I was dealing with very forthcoming, no problem, let me look things up. But there were some people that were really like sort of hedging, and I said, I'm not kind of dealing with someone who's really kind of uncomfortable with, and I offered the same to myself. I will send you a screenshot of my credit. If you're concerned, you can certainly do a background check on me. What's the big deal? Like, I've had background checks, as I said, for charitable things where, if you're interacting with say the elderly, they want to make sure that somebody's background is clean. So do it on me as well. And there were 1 or 2 people that I just, did checks on that I was completely shocked to find things in their records. And I thought to myself, thank God Chris told me that was sort of a standard thing when he was first getting to know certain people he was working with, and he wasn't, he was generating the relationships in the beginning, and that I really got past that level of discomfort, because you really have to think carefully about who you want to work with, lend to, and consider things that a bank would, a bank might do certain types of checks, right? I don't know that they do background checks, but they're doing credit checks. Why wouldn't you want to know if somebody has really poor credit and you're thinking about doing business with them? If they can explain it to you, great. If somebody just, completed multiple property mortgages and has their credit scored lower because they have so much funds extended, even that you want to know where they stand. So I just wanted to say that, thanks, Chris. And I really do think it's a great idea to do. It's so inexpensive to do a background check. It's, I don't know, $24 or something like that. Why would you consider working with somebody for tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars and risk your principal for a couple of bucks to do a background check? And if somebody is really hesitant, then think carefully, do I want to work with that person?
I'm so glad that helped and that worked out for you.
You're a good coach, Chris.
Anytime. Quite simply, in the very beginning, you're trying to develop a trust, and that goes both ways. And if you're the one providing the capital, you want to know who you're dealing with. And I find a lot of value in just the simple question of, are you willing for me to run both the criminal background check and the credit check? And then once I get approval, before I even do it, and this is the most valuable part, is you tell them, hey, so I gathered this, I am just about to run it. Is there anything you want to tell me, before I run it? And that will tell you right off the bat what kind of person they are. Not necessarily what's in it, but are they willing to tell you? And I think I've told everybody the story of where I did it one time and they didn't tell me anything and things popped up, and they weren't all that terribly serious, but they had a chance to tell me and they didn't. And that tells a lot about somebody's character if you're trying to develop a relationship very, very quickly. So I'm so glad to hear that worked. Guys, get beyond this fear. If you're providing the even if you're not, if you're just providing a ton of your time, there's worth to that. Get over your fears with those things, because, and just be very professional about it, because just a little bit of money up front can save you a lot of pain.
If you want to feel a little less uncomfortable, you can just offer for the same, you can do it on me. I'll be happy to have you do the same for me. You want to see some account statement that proves that I'll be able to fund it closed, you take the number off and you show that you have your name on an account statement. What's the big deal? You would do that if you were borrowing from a bank or you're getting a HELOC. So, if you feel uncomfortable, you can just say, I'm happy to do the same as well.
Great. Hey, what do you guys think about, Kimberly says, is anyone open to discussing an auction land deal today? Kimberly, are you able to come on the mic and sort of share some details, and maybe we can get a little bit of quick feedback from the group here?
Yes, thank you. It may be just too close to even be able to jump in on. The auction closes today, but it can still be pulled out with a low bid. And it's so.
Can you turn up your mic a little bit? It's
sorry.
very clear, but very low.
Okay, sorry about that. Goodness.
Or just talk a little louder, maybe.
Or closer to the
I'm
mic
not
or.
finding the settings. Oh, no. The boys are starting. Crap, I'm sorry. Goodness.
Now it got worse.
Go lay down. Quiet. Go lay down. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Sounds like she's multitasking over there. Give her a minute and see if she's going to come back on. So, an auction, and today is the date. I attended a tax sale auction once. The property right adjoining to mine was going up for tax arrears, and we thought, oh, geez, maybe we can get a good deal on this, and I'd never gone to one. So me and my boyfriend went. I think we had like $5,000 or something with us. The property around here is pretty cheap, and it was a very small parcel. But as it turned out, it was online also, and it ended up like a bidding war with the realtor. And one of these local realtors was here, and he came with hundreds of thousands of dollars and ended up buying up several properties. So kind of difficult for just the average person without much capital to make any headway with that. But okay, Kimberly's back. What do you want to share, hon? Go ahead.
Okay, we'll see how long we can hold them quiet. I tried to bribe them. It's an auction. Now I laid my pad picture down. Okay, it's 20 acres in the Sierras, and it's such a low down that I could parcel this and put it into homesteading and camping and glamping because it's right in that 15-minute window of a tourist lake as well. And so there's just so much potential that, oh goodness, I don't want to miss out on if somebody might want to have left my part of the place. Sorry.
Maybe if anyone is willing to kind of talk about the details with Kimberly, even off the call, maybe send her a direct message here in the chat.
Yeah, she contacted me and we talked about this some time ago, and we just been personally texting, so I'll talk.
Oh,
with
cool.
her. But just some
How
general
nice of
ideas.
you.
You want to be careful with something like this, that you've done your homework beforehand. Yeah, you can get some really, really great deals, but you can get some serious stinkers too. And for instance, if your idea is to buy something like this and, split the lots and everything, that might be a home run, or it might be a total dud, because depending on where it's located, there might be restrictions. I have a parcel of land that I had that plan with, and now we're just getting a lot of red tape in terms of splitting lots and all that. And I mean, there's multiple outs, but our grand plan of dividing it to 140 plus different lots is it's not going to happen. You got a county screaming for units, but you start, trying to add them, and they're like, well, give us $500,000 for the use of the road. I'm like, okay, can I do that at the end instead of the very beginning? You guys want to help me out here? And sometimes you just, you have counties that just get in their own way. So I don't want to scare people away. I mean, sometimes you just got to take the risk, but be careful with parcels and be careful with, and it's bad. I'm giving dual advice here. One, you got to be able to move quick. Sometimes really good deals, you got to move quick and can't get stuck with analysis paralysis. On the other hand, if you don't have enough information, you have to make sure that you don't go through with something because your time is short. You know, most deals that I try to get, I don't get, and I'm fine with that. I put in a ton of offers and most of them don't get accepted, and I'm fine with that. If you have too many deals accepted, you're offering too high.
I also would mention, I'm not sure about that particular state, but I had thought that was kind of a neat idea, buying property and maybe splitting it into a campground. I live in the middle of a national forest with lots of RV trails and hunting and fishing and all that. And I found, at least here in Michigan, camping is highly regulated. If you have more than 3 lots, whether they have no power on them or not, rustic or whatever, you get into this zone where you have to have all of the accessibility, have to have a nurse on staff. I mean, there's a lot more to it than people think of just, hey, I'm going to make some lots and people can throw their tents on there. So with any business that you want to get into, you're going to want to, of course, look into what the regulations are, and red tape is similar to what Chris is mentioning. So not sure if that was particularly helpful, but if anybody is willing to chat with Kimberly about this more offline, looks like she has gotten some planning and zoning. Yeah, interesting. So you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. It's just, do you have enough time to do it well with this deadline? So I guess with anything, there's a risk, but don't ask me. I'm not an investor.
Yeah, I mean, look, you got to be careful. Even if you pay $1 for it, if it's got significant, property taxes that you're going to have to continually pay, there's still money at risk. So I wish the best of luck. Feel free to give me a holler and we can discuss it.
Yeah, I had a friend that he bought some land and it was a great deal, but then it turns out it used to be a dump, like a literal dump. So they had to spend a bunch of money cleaning up, feet and feet of broken glass and metal and debris. And so due diligence is so important. All right, guys. Well, I guess we're just a few minutes early, but I think we did pretty good to use up most of the session. Chris, travel safely to Italy. I hope you have a great trip. Maybe take some pictures. Maybe you could share a pic or two when you get back. And I'll see you guys all again July 12th, same time, same place, with Scott Smith as our host. So have a great couple weeks and a safe holiday too.
Thank you, Liz.
Bye, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.